Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Ivan Tejeda, and in today's video, we're going to cover the 10 steps to increase your property's cash flow using Airbnb. There are a lot of real estate professionals out there that are leaving money on the table, and quite frankly, many of them don't even know it. Here's the truth of the matter. Real estate is constantly changing. The real estate of before is not the real estate of today. There are new methods in real estate that'll generate you more cash, more time, and more freedom. And one of those methods is through leveraging the Airbnb platform. This means that if you own a property or are looking to invest in a property, then you deserve to know how you can 2 or 3x your return. In today's video, I'm going to give you the first 10 steps that you need to take to maximize the cash flow of your real estate properties through Airbnb. Now, before we get to the video, if you're in real estate at some capacity and you want to learn how to be confident that you're not leaving money on the table when it comes to your real estate, then you're definitely going to want to subscribe to stay up to date with all of the videos that I post every single week. And if you want to take it even a step further, in the description, you're going to find a link to my $27 starter course that'll get your feet wet and you can take the next steps in this Airbnb journey. Okay, let's get back to it. Step number 1 is choose your property type. As many of you may know, there are 2 ways that you can get a property. Number 1, the most common one, is to buy a property. And number 2, by leasing a property or doing rental arbitrage. And then of course, there's the multiple types of properties that you can buy or lease. You got houses, townhomes, condos. You can also house hack and list on Airbnb. You can glamp nowadays. You can do RVs. So many different types that you can actually monetize. Now, like everything in this industry, every property type has its pros and cons. For example, if you have a larger home, that requires more planning, therefore your bookings are farther ahead. Versus if you have an apartment or a studio, you can list the property today and in a few hours have a booking because someone was looking to book in that area and it only required one person to make a decision. Versus a home that you're planning with your family, everybody has to come together and agree to that home. As I'm sure many of you have tried with planning your vacations with family. You can also choose the rental arbitrage model, which basically states that you can rent a property with your corporation and then list the property for profit on Airbnb. Step number 2 is location is key. Now, we've always heard it, location, location, location. But when it comes to location in this industry, you have to ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1 is where you're going to start your Airbnb portfolio. And naturally, number 2 is why you're going to start it there. Where you're going to start your Airbnb portfolio is important because it can definitely influence your operation and workflow. For example, I usually suggest when you're first starting off to stay as close as possible to where you live. So at a moment's notice, you can act accordingly if something happens. For example, in my particular case, my first Airbnb property was just 15 minutes away, and this will make things a lot simpler for you in the later steps of prepping your business. Now, once you become more seasoned and you already have a toned workflow and you have the right people in place and it's operating smoothly, then I would venture out into other places that are further away, maybe even internationally. Now, the second question is, why would you start it there? The where is just as important as the why. You have to really determine what is the benefit of having a property in that particular location that you chose. Now, here are a couple questions that you can ask yourself to help you determine the why. Is the location that you chose by main attractions like national parks, theme parks, lakes? Are you in a touristy city, etc.? Are you looking to accommodate travel nurses, working travelers, and professionals that are looking to sleep somewhere in order to work in that location? You really need to analyze who your ideal guest is and the type of person that commutes to that location that you're already thinking about starting your business in. And that leads us to step number 3. For some of you, you will skip this step because you already have the property, but step number 3 is to acquire a property. This is the time where you finalize the paperwork for buying or leasing the property, negotiations, inspections, due diligence to get your property ready for listing. Make sure to fix it up and it's structurally ready for a guest to stay there. Now, this is very important. Try to get it right the first time. And by that, I mean, don't procrastinate in fixing or renovating certain things that you know need to get done just because you're in a hurry. It's better to rip off the band-aid and do it right from the bat instead of trying to renovate and change things around once you started to get bookings. Now, why do I say this? Because once your property starts to get bookings, it'll be very difficult for you to stop the momentum to do the things that you should have done in the beginning. And the reason is because it's easy to get lazy. And if it's successful, it's tough to block off the dates so that you can get those things done. And of course, if you shut it down, you're stopping your cash flow straight in its tracks and not making the income that you should have gotten. Not to mention that if you already see it making money without getting the fix fixed, then you'll find it not necessary to have to fix it to begin with. So make sure that you get it done in the beginning so that you only have to worry about maintaining the property moving forward. Step number 4 is make it feel like a home. Now this step can easily become overwhelming because of all of the planning that is involved, but the reality is that there's no need to overthink it. One of the first things that you need to decide is, what is your furniture budget? Is your Airbnb a premium experience or a budget experience? You really need to determine which of the two and pick one and stick to it, because that'll determine the way that you treat your listing and furnish it. Not to mention that the location that you choose would actually help you with the type of listing that you decide to furnish and list. You're obviously not going to have a luxury home or property in the middle of the hood, and you're not going to have a budget property in a luxurious property next to the Ritz-Carlton. So make sure that you identify which of the two you're trying to go with and stick to it throughout the whole listing. Now, it's great to have beautiful aesthetics no matter what type of property you have, but don't get too picky with it. If you're going the luxury route, make sure to not go cheap on the furniture. People who book luxury properties are usually going to be more high maintenance, and they're going to expect a certain quality in the furnishing and experience overall. Now, when it comes to the budget option, make sure that you stick to a furnishing budget that can accommodate that. Now, like I said before, furnishing can be one of the more tedious parts of setting up your first listing or properties as a whole. And like I also mentioned previously, based on how far you are from the listing, it's going to make it that much more difficult if you're not close. Now, when it comes to the execution portion of furnishing your property, one of the main things that you have to worry about is logistics when it comes to the deliveries of the different items that you're ordering to be shipped to your property, especially the larger ones. In the perfect world, you would get the keys of your property on the same day that everything that it's going to go inside of the property arrives. Now, that's very unusual for it to happen that way. What I would suggest doing is making sure that you get the keys to the property the day that the larger items arrive, like your bed, sofas, etc. Now, also keep in mind that you need to give yourself some grace period in order to overcome or expect any delays. They do happen, and often more often than we want. If you're not too far from the property that you're setting up, I suggest giving yourself 2 to 3 days to set up the whole property, depending of course on the size. 2 to 3 days for a 1 or 2 bedroom property should be more than enough. Now, there's no real rush. I don't want you to go through everything very fast and cut corners, but there is a rush because the moment that you get the keys, the clock is ticking, and that's money that you could be making with the property already being listed. And on that note, I'll tell you a little story. I've had a student who actually listed the property before getting any of the furniture in and took pictures of the property with very empty rooms. Now, in the description, he was very honest and said that the property will be furnished by X date, so those that book can expect a furnished apartment once they arrive. Lo and behold, he got bookings even with putting the listing up without any furniture, and that is a clear sign that he did his due diligence and market research to know that there is a demand in the location where he had that property. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go out and do that. I'm just giving you an example that time is of the essence, and he was able to make money on the property even sooner without having to wait for the furniture to come in. Now, on the other hand, if the property is further away than where you live, I would suggest giving yourself about a week of leeway in order to make sure that everything is set up. A week should be more than enough time for you to coordinate deliveries for all of the larger items, get the property all set up and finished with the finishing touches, and add those little final touches of pop items that you can add by just going to Home Goods, where you see that there's certain things that are missing, maybe like a little plant. I would suggest a fake one, by the way, not the real ones. They will die. Little artwork on the walls that look very empty. Just a little finishing touches that it's hard to account for beforehand. And until you're in the property, you can't really see are missing. Step number 5 is set up your listing online. Okay, so you got your property all furnished, it's looking beautiful, it's ready for your first guests. Now it's time to set it up in the interwebs on Airbnb's website so that you can start receiving bookings. One of the things that I love the most about Airbnb is that they do all of the marketing for you. You don't need to allocate money for marketing because they handle all of that. But that being said, you do need to optimize your listing in order to get the maximum exposure when people are searching for properties in the area where you have your listing. Shameless plug, I suggest you get my starter course because in there I actually walk you step by step on how to set up your very first listing, even if you don't have a property yet. And we go through it step by step so you're able to do it right the very first time. Now, when you're setting up your listing, it's important that you list everything that is included in your listing when it comes to amenities, like if there's free Wi-Fi, if there's free parking, if there's a hot tub. All of those things need to be included because certain people will look for those things and it might be in the form of a filter. And if you did not include that, you will miss out on that booking. Now you also have to take into consideration all of the text, the language that you use in your listing. When people are reading your description, your job is to give them a feel of what it's like to actually be in the listing. One of the major things that I actually do that many hosts do not do is that in the caption of every single picture, I describe the activities that they could be doing in that room. For example, in the living room, I'll say something like, watch your favorite shows after a long day of work while sipping a glass of wine. See, notice I didn't just say living room like most hosts say, but whichever route you take, this is not one of the steps that you want to skip. Photos are everything. Step number 6 is put it to the test. Now that you have everything set up on and offline, you want to do a test run or a role play. By that I mean that you actually act as if you're one of the guests. Go to the shower, turn on the shower, make sure that the water is flowing with the right amount of pressure, that the drain is draining all of the water accordingly. Go to the kitchen, pretend to cook a meal, make sure that you have all of the pots, the pans, the utensils, everything that the guests would need. Sit down at the couch in the living room, make sure that there's no bumps in the couch, that the TV is at the right level. The idea of this test run is for you to make sure that when the guest actually comes, you've already experienced what they're going to experience and you've corrected anything that needs to be corrected last minute. If you want to take this a step further, invite a friend over and have them stay in the property overnight. Have them sleep in the bed, have them shower, have them watch TV, have them do everything and make sure that they give you their unbiased feedback so that you can make adjustments accordingly. However you decide to go about it, I think this is one of the steps that many people oversee and it can literally make it or break it when it comes to your reviews. Step number 7 is assemble your Airbnb business team. Now when it comes to solidifying your Airbnb business team, it's important to note that some of these roles are absolutely necessary when you're purchasing your property and not so much so when you are renting, because a lot of the things are already included within your rent, which is one of the reasons why I gravitate towards the rental arbitrage model. But nonetheless, here are the types of individuals or roles that you need to have in mind when you decide to start your Airbnb business and scale it thereafter. You obviously need a cleaning crew to make sure that all of your properties are turned over in a timely fashion and spotless clean for your next guest. You're going to need a handyman to correct certain things, a light bulb being out, a doorknob being loose, etc. You're obviously going to also need pest control to make sure that there is no rodents or insects invited into your property. You're going to need lawn maintenance if you have any type of lawn in your surrounding areas. And lastly, you're going to need a general contractor on call in case there's any types of structural issues like water leaks and cracked tiles and things that can be hazardous. Now, needless to say, your cleaning crew is going to be the most important asset of your business. So make sure that you pay them what they're worth. They're simply not just cleaners. They are your frontline people. They are the ones that are going to see issues first. They're obviously going to be the ones that let you know when something was missing, something was broken, and making sure also that things are left how the next guest would want them to have it. And in many cases, they act as an unofficial property manager, which technically you would pay 15 to 20, 25% of your monthly revenue in order for them to do it. Your cleaners cover a lot of those roles when you get the right one. Now, like I mentioned previously, if you're taking the rental arbitrage model like we do, you're mainly only going to need a cleaning crew and maybe a handyman, depending on the type of issues that your landlord will cover within your lease agreement. In our cases, some properties are in apartment communities where they already have maintenance staff, and even to the minimum of changing a light bulb, we just put in a work order and that gets fixed. But nonetheless, having the team necessary in order to have your operation running smoothly and be able to scale with time is the most important part to have that business running smoothly. Now, the best advice I can give you when it comes to this is don't skimp out on pay. Don't be cheap with your employees. You obviously get what you pay for, even if you're just contracting them. I can really go into the weeds when it comes to this step number 7, so let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to elaborate even further and dedicate a full video on this topic. Step number 8 is learn the playbook, play the game. Now, this step is completely optional, but it's one that I highly recommend, especially if you're just getting started in this Airbnb business journey. Many people want to toss their Airbnb business into a management company and have them do every single aspect of the business, and they're just virtually an investor. Now, not that there's anything wrong with that, but when you take that approach, you're frankly giving away much more money than you should, and there's a more cost-effective way to go about it. Now, for those that are newcomers that are just starting off and you don't have a ton of money to invest or have money that you would want to spend on management, this is definitely a must and a point that will save you a ton of money. I personally believe that one of the best way to start the foundation of your business is to do as many of the tasks as you possibly can yourself. When possible, of course. This will give you an advantage that'll tell you how the business works exactly in every single area. You'll learn how to respond to specific scenarios with a certain type of guest. You'll learn how and when to give refunds, how and when to process a claim, how to respond to different requests in general. And you'll then be able to set your own policies within your listings to set the right expectations for each and every one of your guests. By doing things yourself, you'll learn to love, master, and profit from your business. Now, that being said, make sure that you give yourself some grace and understand that there is a learning curve to every single aspect of this business. But of course, there's also tools out there and resources that you can use, like our $27 starter course or even our premium course, the Prohost Blueprint. But not only that once you fully understand every single aspect of your business and it's time for you to hire out for each task, you know exactly what it takes to get those done. You know the exact amount of time that is needed, the tools that are needed, time of effort, and overall, you can ask yourself, how much would I pay or how much would I want to pay for someone to take this task from my plate? See, when I started my business in the beginning, I was still working my 9 to 5. My wife was doing the cleanings and all of that up until we had 2 or 3 listings. At one point, I saw the potential in this business, so we decided to trade roles. She got a job and I focused solely on the business. That meant that I had to clean toilets, communicate with guests, handle all issues, communicate with Airbnb and the guest, and everything else in between. Because I had that experience, I was able to hire a reservations coordinator, the right team for cleaning, be able to assign them the certain tasks that I know were necessary in order to have a smooth operation. Had I not gone through that process, it would have been very difficult for me to determine what things needed and did not need to take place. And that leads me to step number 9, turn on autopilot. See, I drive a Tesla Model S and it's my dream car. And it has this pretty cool feature that I can set it to where it drives itself. I can be literally on my phone, which I shouldn't, but I can be on my phone handling things for a couple seconds before I need to wiggle those steering wheel. Now, I like to think of that analogy as the same principle when it comes to your Airbnb business. You should be able to put your business in autopilot and be able to back away from your business and focus on your business versus being inside of your business operating. One simple way that you can start to hire or outsourcing certain tasks is by making a list of the tasks that you dislike the most tedious ones. When you start to see that your business is generating enough income and you have the resources to start hiring people, hire off those tasks that you do not want to do anymore. And as a matter of fact, once you've hired all of those tasks that you do not want to do, you might be left over with some that you actually enjoy doing. Like, for example, myself, I like to price strategize. I wake up every morning, I have my coffee, and I go into my screen, and in 5-10 minutes tops, I price strategize for the day. That's something that I enjoy doing, and even though I may outsource it at some point because I have other things to do to occupy my time, it is generally something that I enjoy doing, and you might find something in your business that you might like doing. And by all means, continue doing it. Now, speaking of outsourcing, there are third-party websites and softwares that you could use in order to automate your business further. Some of those being Guesty, Hospitable, and so many other ones that it's really hard to keep up with. But most people do not know that many of these features that these third-party websites and softwares offer are already included within the Airbnb platform. And because of that, in my experience and in my example, I don't use any third-party websites for my Airbnb business at this present time. Now, what are the certain tasks that you can actually automate within your business? Bookings, pre-check-ins, checkouts, guest communications, asking your guests to leave a review, scheduling cleaners, and even pricing. And yes, there are software out there to price your listings, but like I mentioned, we do not use any of them. I actually price them manually because the AI out there has not been able to get that granular to where they know the exact pulse of what's going on in my location. Nor do they actually take advantage of the different rule sets and pricing strategies that are available within the Airbnb platform. That, by the way, many hosts do not know. Now, when it comes to your check-ins, there are many options out there for you to use, coming down from lock boxes to smart locks that you can change the codes in for your guests. And I'll leave you to getting the research done for which lock check-in system works best for you. But know that there's very expensive options that are very convenient, that are $250, like the Nest Yale lock system, where you can do it remotely from your Wi-Fi, down to your real estate lockbox, where you just dial in the code analog and access the key that way. Whichever route you take, just know that within the Airbnb app, not the platform on the website, but through the app, you'll be able to insert and put together a very detailed check-in instructions list that the guest can start and just go step by step to access your property the very first time without you having to assist them every step of the way. And lastly, step number 10, we have made it, and probably the most important one: get that money. Now, for you to get that money, it's important that you don't spend that money. And by that, I mean that many people start to see an influx of money coming in that you're not maybe used to seeing, and then you figure out ways to spend it that's outside of your business. Understand that your business money is your business's money. Ideally, you would want to reinvest it and put it into your next properties. It wasn't up until a year that we actually started our business and had about 12 listings before I got my business to start covering my cell phone, my insurance, and other things that were personal, but I could still account for as being business. The reason I did that is because I wanted to create a snowball effect to where my business was growing faster. And that's how we were able to get 12 listings in our very first year. That meant that we got one property per month for a whole year. Now, I'm not trying to be a party pooper. It's exciting for you to get excited about money coming into your business, but use that as a motivation to continue into that snowball effect and momentum to grow your business. And I promise you the time will come where you will be able to take a pay as an owner, and it would be that much sweeter because your company is not being affected by it. And I want you to remember that if I can do it, you can do it too. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but that's the reality. I'm a kid who grew up in Dominican Republic with my grandparents for half of my life. The other half, I lived in the United States with my single mom and my brother. I came up in sales in corporate America and worked my way out finally out of the 9-to-5 rat race when I was 29 years old. This journey has not really been easy, but it sure as heck has been worth it. And I guarantee you that whenever you're investing in yourself, in your family, in your generations to come, you will have no regrets moving forward. Now, I'm going to ask you before you go that if you found some value out of this video, I just ask you, please like the video. It'll help the algorithm suggest it to other folks that are looking for this type of information. I would love some feedback if you enjoyed it, any things that I may have missed, anything that you would have added, maybe a 11th point to the 10th. And remember, if you're a real estate professional and you really want to indulge into this Airbnb journey and maximize your profitability and cash flow from your properties, be sure at a minimum to get my $27 starter course to get your feet wet and see if this is something that will fit your portfolio. Now, off to one of these corners, YouTube is going to suggest another one of my videos that it considers that you might be interested in, and you probably will. So I suggest watching that before you go anywhere else. And with that being said, I'll see you at the top. Let's go.